Star Wars 7x7 episode 2784. So the Book of Boba Fett debuted its season finale 1 week ago today. Gosh, time flies, right? How did it get to be a week since that finale aired? Anyway, so we're going to spend a couple of days talking about the Book of Boba Fett now that it's all said and done, and we're going to start the conversation with a conversation about a season 2, if that's a thing, and what we know so far. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So let's start out this conversation with reference to a story in Deadline Hollywood that came out on Monday, and it has to do with ratings and viewership for the Book of Boba Fett season finale. Now this is coming from an outfit called Samba TV. I've never heard of Samba TV until this story. Apparently they're basically a Nielsen company, except with smart televisions. They have their software installed on a couple of dozen different brands of smart TVs, and people opt in to share their viewing habits with them, or opt out, as the case may be. They make it seem like you actually have to opt into it, that they're not just secretly collecting it on everyone and you have to clue in to figure out that you don't want to share this information. Be that as it may, they are reporting that they saw a 36% increase in viewership for the Book of Boba Fett season finale compared to viewership for the Mandalorian season 2 finale. Now, part of that you would have to imagine might have to do with the additional subscribers comparatively, right? How many more people subscribed to Disney Plus in the period of time from December of 2020 all the way through to February of 2022. Yeah, take that into consideration. But when you also take into consideration the fact that word of mouth around the season 2 finale of the Book of Boba Fett had to be nuts because of the Luke Skywalker cameo at the end of it, well, yeah, you would think that this really augurs as an impressive display for the Book of Boba Fett finale. But in a way, the Book of Boba Fett finale is also as much about The Mandalorian as it is about Boba Fett. So basically, you're kind of getting the boost from both audiences, people who are interested in The Mandalorian, once the Book of Boba Fett proved that they were going to spend significant time with Mando, like they gave him the majority of 2 episodes for all intents and purposes, and the whole will he, won't he with Grogu, whether he would go back to The Mandalorian. I mean, yeah, once they brought that into the storyline, it was kind of a foregone conclusion. But yeah, that's a conversation that we started touching on a little bit last week, and we will continue more deeply in the days to come. But back to the original point, 36% higher than the Mandalorian season 2 finale, but some stuff in there that makes it not really a very clean comparison, but certainly a very hopeful one. And with that kind of performance, you might think, well, gee whiz, season 2 seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? But as we talked about a couple of episodes ago, the fact that they haven't yet announced a season 2, and they still haven't as of today's recording, well, that's kind of a bit of a sign, basically. Even though the series seems to have been successful, that doesn't seem like the angle at which they're going to this. Now, of course, in 2 days' time, they could decide, hey, season 2 is coming, and surprise us all again. But right now, that certainly doesn't seem to be the direction they're going. And there's also evidence for that came out as early as June of last year as well. It has to do with an interview that Ming-Na Wen gave to Digital Spy back in June of 2021, and I'll put a link to it in the blog post for this show's episode at sw7x7.com and in the show notes where it goes out in RSS feeds and on YouTube and whatnot. The gist of it, or at least the gist that you need to know for the purposes of our conversation, is that when she gets a contract for a show, in particular for this, it doesn't say what the show title is. So she thought she was signing on for season 3 of The Mandalorian. And when she received scripts for it, they were numbered as though it was the 3rd season. So it was a 301 and a 302 and a 303, etc., etc., etc. So she had every reason to believe that she was actually working on a 3rd season of The Mandalorian. And the other thing she said in the interview was that they were talking about the show as Mandalorian season 2.5. And at the time this is happening, it isn't really clear from the conversation and the reporting who she means by they, quote unquote, but it really does seem, just based on the fact that this was taking place in June of 21, that it could only be people behind the scenes who were referring to it as Mandalorian Season 2.5. Not that the media was saying anything about it at that point. Like, that was their own internal assumption and presentation, and I'm fumbling for the word that I want to give you. Like, that was their perception. That's the word I wanted to give you. Perception of what they were giving us. And naturally, that ended up causing its own issues by calling the series The Book of Boba Fett and barely making it about Boba Fett for all intents and purposes. That's another conversation that we need to have as well. But now that we have the entirety of this season of the Book of Boba Fett, and we can look back on what happened in chapters 5 and 6, and about the fact that they pointedly decided to resolve the cliffhanger in chapter 7, show us that Grogu did indeed decide to go back to the Mandalorian. Well, yes, it really does kind of prove out what Ming-Na Wen was sharing with the Digital Spy interview about the fact that it really was kind of a Mandalorian season 2.5 after all. As such, it doesn't really seem like a second season is very likely, but they do have elements in place where they could pursue something. I think it's probably more likely, though, that we will continue to see Boba Fett and Fennec Shand and other characters popping up in other Star Wars series, like the actual Mandalorian Season 3. And that right there is where we're going to leave things for the show today. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.